welcome back to episode 74 of Tall Boy Radio. If you joined us last week, you'll have noticed that there's a bit of a new format. As always, we'd love to hear your feedback on that. Now, last time we did a load of intros and introductions to each section. We probably won't do that this time. We'll see how it goes. But I think as the weeks go by, it'll probably become just a little bit more formulaic, and we'll just be smoothly entering into those things. And hopefully, you shouldn't tell the difference. It should look as close to professional as the three of us have ever got in our entire lives. Yeah, thanks for that look of confidence there, Gazza. So we're going to start off the way we always start off then, with introductions. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first then. Hi guys, great to be back again as normal. Looking forward to this again. Found the new format so last week enjoyable and stuff, and this week I am drinking a good old fashioned favourite of mine, which is Ricardo. And just in case that gets drunk, I have another bottle of Ricardo. And then out of, you can quite see if you're watching official TV art merch, as per usual with myself.
Nice work, dude. Andy?
Howdy. On the old left.
Ooh,
nice. Out of the left glass. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Lovely stuff, lovely stuff. I don't know, guys, you're a big fan of that. Well, I'm a big fan of it.
Left. Yeah, love it.
Well, I am drinking a beer called Wiper and True Milkshake, and it is a milk stout. I'll hold the can up to the camera if you're watching on YouTube. It is a 5.6 milk stout. You a fan of milk stout?
I'm a fan of stout.
Well, if you're not familiar with a milk stout, it's basically a stout with the sugars taken from milk, those lactose sugars added into it, and it's nice and sweet, which means it's only got 18 IBUs. And this one is flavoured with chocolate malts and vanilla pods, and I've got to tell you, it is pretty good. It is pretty good. When Double Trouble actually were looking for names for their new beer, I suggested that we didn't know what the beer was going to be at the time, and they were looking to do a collaboration, yeah?
Yeah.
So I suggested doing a milk stout, and I think if they collaborate with one of the players who they sponsor, Sarah Milkowski, they could do a Sarah Milk Stoutski. I think that would be good. So unfortunately they aren't doing that one. I know they aren't doing that one, but it is.
Maybe tag her in Twitter and see whether she can get on the bandwagon. And
I think she'd enjoy that. I'd like to have a beer named after me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't?
Although with my surname, I'm not sure. So then, guys, you want to share something about some news that you had in you this week?
News I've had this week. All right, yeah. So just a bit on my A from the ABC stuff. I was looking at sort of beers to try in sort of 2021, and it might not necessarily be new beers, but it's more just beers that people need to try. And I was having a quick look, and they were saying a couple of Americans really, and I know that you guys are fans of coffee inspired sort of beers. Have either of you tried tea inspired beers?
No, I don't like tea.
Yeah, you see. Andy, what about yourself? Have you ever sort of tried a tea inspired?
I think beer? I have. Yeah, maybe in Brewdog when they had a guest stale on. It does ring a bell.
Well, there was one from Stone Soaring Dragon Imperial IPA, and they went to, and if I pronounce this wrong, I apologize, Tian Shan Tea City in Shanghai, and they did a white tea infused beer. So if anybody in America, if anyone has tried it, drop us a message. Let us know how you got on. The second one, and I know that you've had these beers, was a Goose Island. It's a Goose Island Bourbon County Stout, and I don't know whether you've tried that or not, but it's a 12.9%.
It's nigh on impossible to get in this country.
Right, yeah. Well, it falls. I felt as though it felt right into Andy's sort of remit of actually quite a decent ABV at 12.9. And obviously, with your love of bourbon and your love of beer, I thought that actually would be. So that came up on sort of the hot list of sort of beers to try in 2021. So, yeah. And then the only other bit of news was obviously the Makes a Bud. So Anheuser-Busch was saying that basically they came up with a bit of a marketing gimmick, and they said the next round is on us, and they said that they would provide every American a free beer if they got to 70% vaccines by the 4th of July.
Wow.
So 70% of the population, if they were vaccinated by the 4th of July, which obviously is American Independence Day, that Bud would say, right, the next round is on us. And they're quite close to that. So I just thought that was obviously, it's coming up pretty soon. So it might be worth keeping an eye on. And for all of our American listeners out there, get yourself vaccinated and you get a free beer, which, hey, kill two birds with one stone.
That's it, yeah, that's it. And funnily enough, they mentioned that one on the podcast actually last week. They did. And obviously those two guys aren't fans of the idea of the vaccine. So even a free beer would not persuade them. And I'm definitely not Johnny Sparkles. Like you say, he likes his non-alcoholic stuff.
Absolutely. So yeah, it just piqued my sort of interest in terms of sort of, I wonder whether or not you would get anything in this country, whether any sort of companies, UK breweries that would say, oh, actually, you know what, if we get to a percentage of vaccinations, whether they would give the next round on them, sort of thing. But interestingly, the tea infused beer was one that I thought, it might be quite interesting. So whether you can get your hands on it in the UK, I'm not too sure. One other thing though, do you know Danny Trejo? So was he played Machete? Was it the guy?
Oh yes.
He's got his own beer, and apparently it was only available in and around the Los Angeles area, but now he's expanding it. He's going sort of statewide. So if you're listening in sort of California, then you can get the Trejo sort of beer, which would be interesting. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
Yes, he has a lot of taco shops, so you got to go in there, have a taco and a beer.
Absolutely, yeah.
He does. Yeah,
he's good on Instagram. If you follow him on Instagram, it's really good. Like promoting and stuff.
He is a bit of a character, isn't he? To be fair.
Well, when you read a bit of his bio, and obviously prison and sort of substance abuse and all this, and obviously now like massively well-known actor and sort of humanitarian now sort of thing, and I just thought, that's pretty cool. And as I say, I was looking, sort of beer news around the world. He's effectively trying to go sort of more statewide in terms of California, and then obviously I suppose the plan will be go nationwide. I suppose, but
might not be in time for my cousin coming over.
Maybe not. But yeah, so they're my sort of just sort of 2 or 3 bits of news really for my section.
What about yourself, Andy? You got any news you want to share with us?
Yeah, it's quite an interesting one. This one, I read up on it about a few weeks back, and it says "pull it in my pocket," so they say, and it's just like about Belgian breweries that are the Abbey ones. So apparently, there's only 14 Abbeys that brew beers that are left. They're all like winding down because they're not retraining like the monks and stuff to brew the beers and all that. So what will happen is a brewery can brew a beer, and then if it's on site or near an abbey, the monk can come in and approve it. Then they can get it on the label, on the bottle, saying it's a Trappist beer or something like that. So these numbers are dropping down, but a long way around to get to the story. Basically, there's an abbey called Abbey Notre Dame de Saint Remy, and they've been in a legal battle for about 10 years now with a nearby quarry. And basically, this quarry wants to deepen so it can prolong its life from 2022 to 2046. And it provides like work for all the nearby towns and stuff like that. And apparently, it's like one of the world's biggest. Did I not save it? It is.
Those research.
Yeah, I did everything. I thought, it's too long. We'll forget that. It's a big asshole in the ground, and it's got all this stuff. And they make billions. This quarry does billions. It all goes worldwide, and all they wanted to do was basically dig deeper, and it was going to reroute a spring. So a lot of the water was going to come through this quarry, and then the abbey was then going to get less. And they'll say the abbey for 10 years been saying it's going to interfere with our water supply and also change the taste of it. But apparently the quarry owns this like spring, so it's still going on and on and on. But yeah, it's the Roquefort brand. So I don't know, really big. Well, for me, a really big brewery. But yeah, might be tasting like Carlin soon.
Or the famous cheese.
I was going to say, is it cheese infused beer?
Actually, though, interesting enough, if there are any Abbey breweries out there and they need a monk to come and bless things or give it a name, give me a shout. I've been ordained. I'll come do the job. That's it. I don't want it. Maybe expenses and a couple of beers. Nothing more. That's all I ask.
Most of the monks are silent. They take a vow of silence. So
I'll sit in silence. That's not
for 10 minutes while you're drinking that beer.
That's it. Yeah, I drink quicker when I say less, and I make less sense. Right, I've got a couple of bits of news. So, Meantime Brewery, which is a London-based brewery. Are you guys familiar with that? We tried some of their beers before, I think. They are doing a beer for Record Store Day. Do you ever buy anything from Record Store Day? I'll look at Andy, actually, because I know Gaz's tasting music.
No, not for me.
No. Well, I've occasionally tried to get myself, like Morrissey's done some stuff, funnily enough, and I've tried to get myself, and I actually ended up missing out on most of the occasions. But they have done a beer in conjunction with that. Now, there are 2 Record Store Days, 12th of June, which has just passed us by, and then the 17th of July as well. And the beer is called 33:45, so 33:45, which obviously are the 2 speeds of the old records, if you're all like us and you remember using them. So yeah, I wouldn't mind to get my hand on that one. It's a fairly light beer. It's 3.5 ABV, but I think it could be interesting. And moving on from that as well, in conjunction with that sort of idea, there's going to be this year, I think it's the first year that they've done it, an Indie Beer Shop Day, which is the 17th of July. And basically, you can pick up exclusive beer collaborations. Now, nobody's really talking about what those beers are at this point in time, but they're only going to be available in independent beer shops. So you can get some online, but you're not going to be able to buy it from the larger dealers or the larger stores or chain stores. You're only going to be able to buy these beers from smaller stores. And I think that's quite an interesting idea, especially now, sort of that time frame. Things being lifted, you can get yourself out into the beer shops and experience and pick yourself up a few treats as well, couldn't you?
Yeah, that sounds good. Because you can always chat to the store owners and they'll recommend a load as well.
Yeah,
exactly. You tell them what you like, and they'll say, "Well, have you tried this? You tried that?" And they normally go down a storm, don't they? The other bit of news is actually about the larger retailers. These things that you see now, and they're very popular during lockdown. Have you seen the pumps that you can buy? You put the kegs in. Yeah. Morrison's are doing one now for 150 notes.
Okay.
Which isn't too bad, I don't think.
That's reasonable.
Draft beer at home, you take your kegs, and I think you get a little bit of money back when you take your kegs back as well.
Okay.
So if anybody's tried one of those, give us a shout. We'd love to hear it. I've never had a beer pulled from one of those. So I'd be really intrigued to see what they're like and just to see what the different beers are that are available. I think Left is one. I'm sure I've seen the Left kegs available. There's a store in Blackpool with a really decent range. Smileys, I think it's called, something like that.
Don't know, not sure.
Yeah,
but Left at home would be cool.
Yeah, on tap. Well, Left on tap.
That would be cool. I'm not sure I'd leave the garage if that was the case, but
there's a system called the Perfect Draft, which I'm guessing it's the same, where you put a little 5-litre keg in it, it cools it down, and then you can pour it out of that. It's probably very similar.
Yeah. Funnily enough, actually, one of my stores has a returns facility where we operate through Herbies or DPD, I forget who it is, and you can drop these things off, and I get a stack of these a week coming back, the empty kegs getting sent back. And honestly, it's clearly massive, because I can guarantee I'll be in tomorrow morning, I'm in that shop tomorrow morning, and there'll be a stack of them. So really, really popular. Go on then. We've talked about what we're doing differently. We know it's ABC of beer. Gas does the A, which is
all markets.
So go on, dude, take it away.
So just in terms of there was a bit of a sort of an article that I picked up, and it's more to do with like a bit of a I suppose a protest, and again I suppose it's on the back of when I mentioned earlier about the Anheuser stuff, was that there was companies in America and they were basically just pouring beer away because there was a couple of beer companies and they were talking about like funding American politicians, and it's actually to do with the LGBTQ plus community sort of thing. And these politicians apparently backed some anti-LGBTQ plus, if I've got that right. And actually there was like a massive big sort of protest just about the fact that that these companies were supporting these politicians. They're paying, and effectively what they do is they were just like pouring beer out the window, like in protest, just literally just like pouring beer away, like wasting your money and all of that sort of thing. And basically the company, and it was America, and again the companies were sort of talking about, well, we support politicians that stand for X, Y, and Z, and actually they were just, and I suppose in a way it's a bit like the BrewDog, in as much as that actually the public perception of what that company is like compared to actually what they do stand for is completely different. And actually they were like, we will support these people and we support these politicians. And actually the general swell of opinion was that actually we don't want you to do that. And literally there was like massive sort of protest, and they were like literally just like pouring beer out of windows and stuff. And that happened a few places in America. And then the only other one was, I looked at, there was a company in, I can't remember what it's called now, it was in Australia, and they were talking about, again, the non-alcoholic bit. And remember last week I spoke about people just effectively turn up buying water, and they didn't want to sort of pay for a surcharge to get in just to drink water. Well, on the back of that, effectively there was a company that said, if you don't want to just drink water, then come and just drink flavoured water instead. And effectively they jumped on the back of the bandwagon in terms of this I can't remember the name of the company now, but they basically were charging people just to go into their bars, and it was $15 I think to get in, and people weren't drinking beer and stuff, and it's just water. But on the back of that, there was a company that piggybacked on, well, look, we've got all these flavoured waters, if that's just what you want to do. And it was quite sort of clever in the way that they marketed it. And so that was really just the two bits from the all, was that there's protests going on in America actually to do with politicians, and does beer and politics mix? Not too sure. There was a couple of articles just about new companies opening up and new beers, and you can actually jump online and get a calendar of like when new beers are being released and that sort of stuff. So there's a craft one. I don't know whether you've picked up in your C bit, but there's like a craft calendar of when different companies are planning to open their craft beers and stuff. So bits going on. I mean, for me this week, nothing specific in terms of a company or a product. It was more just like a bit of news, just from actually just need to keep an eye on. I say the sort of throwing away of beer in protest, but also actually linking back to what I said a minute ago about the 4th of July stuff with the Anheuser-Busch stuff. So not that much for me this week really on the A. So I'll pass that over to either Andy or to add in terms of the B and the C.
Well, just before you do, just something else actually, which is almost the polar opposite of what you talked about there going on in the States. Have you seen the launch of the new TV station in this country, GB News?
No. Oh, is that on the back of the LBG?
It's a TV station which has vowed to basically ignore cancel culture, basically to drive it out. That is their goal, is to just talk about things sort of very full on. And they've lost a number of sponsors, a couple of large beer sponsors, Copperberg being one, and Grolsch have both pulled out of that, saying, they're woke. I'm 47. I don't really know what woke means. I'm pretty sure I ain't, but I'll do my best. I'll do my best, I promise. But yeah, I thought that was quite interesting actually. When you said that, it just struck a chord with me. I thought, well, that's interesting that they're doing that on the basis of that. And we talked about BrewDog, and how they presented themselves in the media, and then how it transpired that things were. And there's been a backlash against them as well. You say. So that's been quite curious, really quite curious. And just on the back of flavoured waters, actually, I know you're talking about it as a non-alcoholic beverage, but they've had it in the States for a while. But alcoholic flavoured water, seltzers, they're coming over to the UK now. Bud did some Bud Light.
Who's the singer? There was a singer that's invested. I want to say, who was the Cornish? No. So female. She female. She like from Devon, Cornwall.
Oh no,
can't remember. But there's an article about she'd invested in this seltzer sort of a company and stuff. I can't fly. I'll have to Google it and try and find out who it was. So but again, that was so that might be one for maybe next week. I might have to find out who that is. But yeah, no, that's interesting on the back of the flavoured water stuff. I'd pick that up. Yeah.
Andy, do you want to tell us a little bit about your Belgian story for the week?
Sure. To tie in with the quarry earlier that produces lime, minerals, and dolomite. It was on my notes. I found it in the middle. I just had that bigger chunk of text. I didn't separate it out, but there we go. So just in case you're really wondering what was there. So there's basically there's a brewery called that. I'm going to say this wrong. Achel, Achel, Trappist. I've only had their beers in Belgium in certain bars, but apparently they've lost their Trappist branding because I said earlier that the monks are low in numbers and stuff like that. Well, basically, there's 3 requirements to have the Trappist logo. They've got to be brewed within the abbey or within the proximity, brewed under close attention of a Trappist monk who lives in the abbey, and any profit from the sale of beer goes to the upkeep and basic living expenses of the abbey, and any other profit will be donated to a good cause. So this brewery, basically the Trappist monk who oversaw the brewery, beer making, has retired, and he's not got a replacement. So they basically had to get rid of the Trappist logo and put the town's coat of arms on it. And apparently there's 13 Trappist breweries worldwide, but only 5 of them are in Belgium, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, that's quite bizarre. I would have thought most of them.
Yeah, I'd have thought, absolutely.
I find that quite. So literally, none of the money, they don't make any profit. It just pays for the upkeep of the abbey and the brewery, and then
goes to good causes.
Yeah. So I think they pay staff and all that stuff and running costs. So that it's just out of the profit. I think. Yeah, they basically probably got a really small profit.
That's fascinating. No, it's fascinating. Well, I guess it explains why there's so few of them, because people like to make money.
Yeah, absolutely. Why would you go into business? Well, to make money. Yeah, ultimately.
I'm sure we've had a couple. I'm sure when we visited Belgium, we will have had a couple of Abbey ales. Whether I can remember or not, I don't know, because I spent that entire holiday absolutely mullered.
Drinking from about 10 in the morning. Every night, yeah.
It was a winner, an absolute winner. It was a great holiday. We need to repeat that. Actually, we need to do a TBR version of that holiday.
Yeah, we'll record it though.
2021 was meant to be the year of TBR going on the road, wasn't it? But it sort of turned out not to be the case thanks to the blasted COVID.
Well, it's going to have to be 2022.
It's going to have to be 2022, yeah.
I wonder what pandemic we'll have next year.
We'll probably have the Delta plus variant or something or whatever it is.
I was thinking locusts. So, is that you? Sorry, is that you done down the old Belgian front, Andy?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, it is, yeah.
He's got loads more releases. We're just saving them for future weeks, and that's what it is.
In his pocket,
absolutely.
So, I wanted to talk a little bit about what actually defines a craft beer. Because, truthfully, I didn't really know. I kind of had an idea what a craft beer was, but I was interested to see if there was a difference between the UK and the US definition. Does anybody know, just out of interest?
Is craft about how big it is, whether it's
basically, yeah.
Well, there you go. I'll stop there.
No.
I'll stop there because I'm on to a winner.
It is. In the US, you have to produce less than 6 million barrels a year, which still seems like an awful lot to me, and be owned by less than 25% of you needs to be owned by an alcoholic beverage industry member that isn't a craft brewer. So, like we talked about last week, I think Carlsberg owning part of Grimbergen, if they owned, say, more than 25%, then they could never be classified as a craft brewer. I mean, they probably can't anyway, but that's the whole idea. In the UK, do you know what the definition is?
Is it less than a certain number of barrels again?
It isn't. There is no definition.
Oh, right, okay.
So, yeah, the idea is, for me, the US one sort of makes sense. The UK, I guess it would be done on a smaller scale than that to be qualified as a craft beer. But certainly craft beer makes up 29% of the market. And for me, I guess the closest I could think of it is in terms of an analogy was, if you're an old get like me, and you remember the old indie music back in the day, you had Stock Aitken and Waterman producing pop music, and they were selling out, and they were producing things that were popular, that people were buying it. And then you had smaller record companies who gave their artists more of a license to do what they wanted to do and create the music that they wanted to create. And I would sort of put that akin with craft brewing. They're not tied into creating these mass populist beers like the likes of Budweiser.
Yeah.
Been creating it for years. Stella since 1366 or whenever it is. Very.
Are we sponsored by Budweiser? I've heard their name quite a lot today.
But
if you want to send us something, that's
absolutely. The answer, Andy, is not yet.
Are we the three frogs in it or something? Bud.
No, listen,
Bud.
Yeah, I'll do anything for money.
Bud.
Well, that's going to come back and bite me, innit? But yeah, so you look. I thought that for me was a good analogy, and then you look at the likes of BrewDog. Now, would you say that they were a craft brewer?
Not now. No way.
Not now. No, this is it. They certainly started off craft brew. And I think for the most part, they stick quite close to their origin in terms of they produce more unusual beers, the hazy beers and the New England IPAs. They do a lot of those, a lot of powerful stouts. The sort of things you'd expect from a craft brewer, they're still doing, which I think is quite interesting.
It's almost like that. As you say, to carry on with your music analogy, that independent label. So that, I suppose, the indie independent label vibe, and as much as not necessarily we're doing it to go against the norm, but we're just going to do what we want. So not to necessarily look. Everybody wants to sell loads of their beer and make money, don't they? But it's not like for the masses, is it? It's almost like as Andy was saying last week, it's almost like a high ABV, or it's not a 4.5% one. You just chug it. So it's flavors. It's not your traditional lager. It's your fruit infused, or your coffee infused, or your vanilla infused, or whatever it may be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's it. And I think the interesting thing is they're going to start off like BrewDog, like say, started off doing craft. Whether other craft breweries have those sort of same goals to be as big as BrewDog, I don't know. Or whether their goal is just to basically make a decent living out of it and sell decent beer. Yeah. If you are a craft brewer and you'd like to get in contact and explain to us, I'd love to know more, because I think most people who set up in business have that idea in the back of their mind. Certainly whenever you watch Dragon's Den, we could go global.
Yeah.
And I'd be interested to know if that were the case for craft brewers, or whether it is just doing it for the love of craft.
I mean, you do hear stories of sort of very localized, I say breweries, craft beer makers, if makers is even the right phrase. And you hear them talk about, we're quite happy just providing the local area, and actually we don't really want to go global. Well, why not? Why would you not want to do that? Because everybody wants to make money, don't they?
Well, we have in a previous podcast, listen if you're not listening to it, we've had a brewery guy on, haven't we?
Yeah.
Did it as a hobby, sold it to pubs, made enough money to then start doing it a bit more full time, didn't he? Did it in his garage.
Yeah.
And then stopped there because of kids and stuff. But the world's your oyster. I suppose you're looking that you can make a living off it, do that. But then, do you want to go global where you got you're messing with the big boys then, aren't you? Where you got to invest millions or hundreds.
And you look at somebody like a good friend Dave, who you Double Trouble. They're obviously now doing their beer club. And it's, if you spoke to Dave or Scott and you sort of said, do you want to go global? Well, yeah, they do, don't they? They want, they wanted investment. They wanted people to sort of jump on board. And I suppose the guy that came on and spoke to us and came on our podcast, had it not been for family and kids and that he would still be doing that, and he would be continuing to do that and probably trying to continue to make bigger. But it's interesting now, Andy, because you will get your economies of scale and all that, and you go bigger, and then all of a sudden you then become more populous. So therefore you become more popular. So therefore you then get bracketed in the same, I suppose, as Bud and Carling and your bigger companies. And is that what you want?
Well, that brings us on nicely when we're talking about BrewDog and the populist beer, is to actually have an answer as to why Elvis juice has been reduced in its percentage. And it isn't as we thought. It is
which taxes, which is one of the things we said, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was nothing to do with taxation. We were quite wrong in our assumptions. Now, I got this information from another podcast, which is called the Brewdog News Podcast. So I guess if anybody would know,
absolutely, it'd be them.
It would be them.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, they did the same thing with, and I'd forgotten about this, they did it with Hazy Jane. Now, Hazy Jane was about 7%, absolute thumping beer, and they dropped it down to 5%. But it was still a very, very good beer. A lot of people actually preferred it because it packed less of a punch. You could drink more of them. And then they brought out another beer called OG Hazy, 7%, which was the old Hazy Jane.
Right, okay.
And then they brought out another beer called Triple Hazy, I think it's called. Did you have that one the other day, Andy? I'm sure you picked up
yourself. Triple hot one as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, an absolute belter of a beer. So it's a stronger version again than that original 7%. And this is what they've done with Elvis Juice. Elvis Juice is an incredibly popular beer, but at 6.5%, places were shying away from having it on top because at that sort of percentage, you know yourself, if you go into these beer shops, you're generally not buying a pint of the stuff.
Yeah.
You're buying 2/3 of a pint.
Yeah.
And this is what they want to get away from. When people will put off the idea of buying 2/3 in a pint, because it's certainly in the market in the UK, the idea is very much, I'm going to have a pint of beer. So that is the idea behind it, is to make it more saleable. So will we see the old Elvis Juice coming back with another name? You know, maybe a little bit, a little bit more Elvis. A little conversation, see what I did there.
I thought,
yeah, and then maybe a stronger version as
well.
Elvis
XL.
Yeah, but interestingly enough, in the States where pints aren't as readily consumed, they do have the different measures. It's keeping its percentage over there, so it's staying at 6.5%.
And is that because they don't sell them? They sell them in pints or whatever, which
people are much more. Craft brewers have been around a lot longer in the States, and people will buy those smaller measures, and that's quite normal to them.
Which is weird, because it takes you back to a memory of going down to London with Andy, and we went to Belgo, and it was like, try this, and it's like, I'll have a pint to you, and you won't, because they won't sell you in pints. It's pretty strong or whatever it was. You sell them in halves or whatever. Well, I'll just have 2 halves, then it's fine.
Schooners or something.
Something like that. You won't get them in pints. So why not? Well, if you drink pints, they'll probably have to carry you out.
It was about 9.5%.
Something stupid.
Yeah, and actually, it's also linking in with the alcohol-free stuff. They are going to be doing an Elvis AF. So what that one will be like, I don't know, because I actually didn't like the taste. I do like the Hazy Jane, interestingly enough. I like that as a 5% beer, and I still drink it. Prefer the 7% there. But the Elvis Juice, not so much. So how that'll work as an alcohol-free, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But certainly, they are fairly expensive beers. See what I did
there, I like what you've done there.
Our topic of conversation this week is expensive beer. Go on, Andy. I'm sure we will have looked at some of the beers that will be the same, but I know Gaz is coming at it from a different angle as well. But do you want to talk about a few different costly beers that are available?
Well, I don't know about available, but one of the most expensive beers that has been was from an auction. So Northern Monk Brewery. Basically, 4 of the brewers went up Ben Nevis, took a load of brewing kit up there, and used fresh water and I think something else, ingredients like blueberries and dew water or something like that. And brewed a beer using that stuff from the top of Ben Nevis, brought it back down. So for 330ml bottle, how much do you think it was worth? Bear in mind, they made 50, I think it was.
Oh, I don't guess.
Yeah.
£1,000.
£1,000.
For a bottle like that size,
that's insane.
It is.
But just because it's fresh ingredients straight from the top of Ben Nevis, and I think it's for auction as well. So that's why I said it now. Get out of the way, then we'll go to the proper stuff in a minute.
So what type of beer was it? Do you
know? Barrel aged imperial stout.
Oh yes.
So yeah, once it had brewed and all that, they pull it. They got given bits I've not put in my notes, but basically got given a load of barrels from a whiskey place, and they brewed it in there for a couple of weeks, I think it was.
Oh wow!
More extensive research.
Yeah. I got too excited. That was a late addition to my notes app just before I came on the call.
It's
And
weird.
I was like, "Ooh, I'll add that on." 11%.
I was sort of, when I was discussing with Dad about the expensive beers, and he sort of said we've probably got a similar sort of list of stuff, and I went, oh, was it the one with the squirrel or hare or whatever it was? And I was like, yeah. That list sort of thing. And I'll let Ad sort of explain it. But I mean, that's a ridiculous amount per bottle. And there's a few others. So was it Samuel Adams? Was it Utopias? Was that the one? Yeah. So obviously that's pricey. And then was it a German one? Was it 57% ABV or something? Is it the strongest beer? Because they said, did they say it was more ABV than some whiskies or something? I've got it, and I can't remember.
Shoresbrough Shorebrock.
Yes, that was the one. Was it the Shores? Was it Shoresbrock 57? Is it or something?
Something.
And
like
it's 57% ABV. So that's
mad.
It's ridiculous.
Is that a beer?
Well, it is. According to their website, it is a beer.
Yeah, but I mean, I sort of think it's over 40.
They certainly don't serve them in pints, do they?
No. It's bloody expensive pint.
What did they say?
The tactical nuclear penguin, and it's like 19%. And it was like treacle, and it was only like a little shot of it, and it was like £8 or something.
Drinking like mead or something. It was. Did they say? Was it? I mean, that was it, the Shoresbrook one. Was it 300? Was it £300? $300 per? I assume it's a 330 litre bottle, is it, or something? So interestingly though, the Brewdog was one that did the hair. Was it the squirrel bits or hair bits or something? I don't know. I don't know. Do you want to?
Well, yeah, it was a beer, and that one was called The End of History, and that one was going for $765 for a 330ml bottle. So if you're watching the YouTube version of this, the bottle of beer that Andy held up a few seconds ago was 330ml. And that's just crazy money. And that one was 55%. I don't know how much enjoyment. If you're a beer lover, that doesn't strike me. That doesn't strike me as a beer. Don't get me wrong. I do really enjoy a strong beer, and when you get up to like 10, 12%, I remember having one in Amsterdam that was 14.5%, and I had that one very early doors in the day, which was a bad move.
Yeah.
And it was, to be fair, it was a cracker, but like Andy said, it's like drinking treacle.
Yeah.
It really has got too much body to it.
I just can't. I mean, you go back to the sort of Shaw's Brock, however you pronounce it, Bock, 57%. I just can't imagine drinking that.
No, I mean, you get your money's worth from it in terms of the percentage. But I can't either. There's a few on the list of the top 10 most expensive beers that I pulled up that were 10%ers, 5%ers, and 6%ers. And you think, do you know what? Fair play. That's a decent beer. Actually, I think if I'm paying that kind of money, and even the cheapest one on the list was $110 for 6.
Yeah,
and that was 5.5%. I'm thinking, step your game up, son.
Yeah,
I want something for my money.
Yeah, exactly. 5.5%. Yeah, come find to the local supermarket. You know what I mean?
Just going back to the Brewdog one, if you go to the Manchester one, they've got a bottle of it on top of the bar. You can't buy it; it's like used or whatever, but it's like a squirrel, and the top of the bottle pops out its gob. But apparently, like each bottle is different animal, so you can get like the squirrel. What is it? Stoats, squirrels, and hares. Used all. And each one's a real animal. It's all been done by taxidermists in Doncaster.
It does look good, and I'll be honest, it's the kind of gimmick that pulls me into wanting to try it. And actually, the squirrel was my favourite. And actually, if you see this, if you follow us on social media, it's a picture of the squirrel we're going to use as the promo shot for this week's episode. Because I for someone who's a vegetarian for as long as I was, it's probably a little bit ironic, really.
But did you drink out of the bottle as well? It's touch lips of it.
We might giving it the kiss of life, wouldn't it?
So I was just looking at the Sam Adams, the Utopia was at 28% ABV or whatever, which is still ridiculous. I mean, obviously, Andy's led us on a merry dance around various bars in London and drinking sort of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12% ABV, and some of them are a bit like, they're so heavy. Let's say full bodied. So to start drinking like 20%, 25%, 30%, you're like, I'm drinking Hugo and that's 4.9, which is not. I love the taste, but it's not a strong beer as such. No. What's yours?
This is 5.6%. This milk stout.
Yeah,
and because it's sweet, it's very light. Actually, it's very, very quaffable. I'm really enjoying it. Actually, you can taste sort of the chocolatey malts in it. I don't get so much of the vanilla to it, but I think with the milk stout anyway, the vanilla. But
you look at the beers, Andy's. So what's Duvel, Andy? What's 6? Is it 6.5? Is it 8? Is it 8?
Yeah.
So okay. So and then Delirium.
9.2, I think.
Yeah, so we've drunk some of them. Nice. Probably one of the strongest beers that I've drunk, but then I can't imagine drinking.
Straff Hendrick's like 11.8 or something like that as well.
What's the strongest one that you've drunk then, Andy?
I think that Tactical Nuclear Penguin, I think 19%.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I genuinely don't know what the strongest one. It might be when we went. It might be like a Delirium or something at 9.
The Straff Hendrick that Andy's on about there is an absolute belter of a beer. I had it years ago on tap actually in Warwickshire, in a pub in Warwickshire when I was visiting my dad down there.
Wow.
And we had a pint there, and it was an absolute belter. I said then, this is one of the best beers that I've had.
What was that? Was it the Rising Sun? And they did their home brews. That might be one of the strongest. Were they about 11, 12?
Some
something
of those
like
used to get a bit messy.
Total Eclipse or Full Moon. It was a bit like a biker's pub, Andy, back in the day, and it shut down now. But Rising Sun, was it Shirley Brook, something like that. And they did. I'd say they did sort of 4 or 5 of their own home brews. It's like Total Eclipse, Partial Eclipse, Full Moon, and they were about 11, 12%. You used to go in there and be like, "Whoo!" I can tell on a couple of them. Sort of thing, you know what I mean?
I just Googled the Tactical Nuclear Penguin just to double check the percentage. It's 32%. So I've had a 32% beer.
so a little bit stronger than the 19 that you thought it was.
Yeah. I think apparently it starts off as a 10% Imperial Stout, and then it's brewed in all different whiskey casks and stuff like that. And by the end of it, it's 32%. I was thinking of maybe it's somewhere else. Sig the Bismarck, I think it might have been. Yeah. Oh, that's 41. I've not had that one. Yeah, there you go. 30% the strongest one I've had.
We're just having a look. It did say here that the Brewdog, the End of History one, and again, I don't know how much it's sort of paper talk. It did say that it was in 2016, the beer returned a jaw dropping $20,000 per bottle in 2016. The point was to raise funds to open a Brewdog brewery in Ohio. Ultimately a successful endeavour.
Yeah,
if you can still find a bottle from the original release and feel like coughing up the astronomical funds for it, expect a blonde Belgian-style beer made using nettles from the Scottish Highlands and fresh juniper berries. So basically, just
it's gonna be like a gin then, isn't it? With juniper berries in at that percentage.
Yeah,
quite a strong one as well, like that.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so that, obviously that was one. Then you've got the Sam Adams one, the same list that the Sapporo Space Barley one was another one that we've probably looked at similar sort of list. But I was just going to talk about sort of beers that you probably wouldn't expect to be expensive, or experiences that I've had where I went in and went, what? So just one that came to mind was, and it's not even that expensive really when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, but when we went down to London, we walked into that bar and it was an NFL weekend. I was like, was it just like a Peroni or something, or just a standard sort of beer? And I was like, okay, can I have 2 Peroni, please? It's like, right, okay, sound. Right, that's did he say £15? £15 something. I was like, what? Like, bloody hell, where are we? Yeah, I know you got London prices. Fudging hell, and this is like a few years ago now. You're like, and it's one of those moments I just thought, yeah, that's pricey. Don't think I can live around here, sort of thing. Yeah, and I can't remember what it was. It was like £7.80 a pint or something. And like back where we live, back in the day, it's probably like £4.50 or something. So you think it's like just ridiculously inflated prices.
Oh, I think my exact words were, well, if I'm paying that kind of money, I'm going to keep the glass as well.
That was where you met your. Was it the Minnesota Viking friend?
Yeah. That was in that bar. Yeah. He was an intimidating guy. He was.
So, what's the most expensive beer that you will have purchased, and Andy? Can you remember? Or
yeah, I've got a couple. One of them was in Brewdog in Manchester. Funny enough, it was called Ron and the Red Ryan, and I was like, gotta buy that. It's got my name on it. So me and Clive went in there, bought 2 bottles, 28 quid. For 2. So it's 40 quid a bottle, and I've been trying to buy it. It's by Evil Twin Brewery, and it's decent beer, but you have to buy it online, but it's always limited numbers. Yeah. But yeah, 28 quid. Like I was paying by card anyway, but I must turn around then. What the hell? Sorry, what the fudge?
Yeah, that's more like it. What the fudge?
Was it worth it though?
It was decent. I don't know about 28 quid's decent, but yeah, it was all right.
It's weird because I not that I've drank loads recently, but you used to drink a bit of red wine, and people used to say you can tell the difference between like a good bottle and a bad bottle and stuff. But I was a bit like, I've probably got like an upper palate of 15 quid. I could probably tell the difference between a 15 quid bottle of wine and a 2 quid bottle of wine. But then I probably couldn't tell the difference between a 50 quid bottle and a 15 quid bottle. Do you know what I mean? There's like an upper palate limit that you think, actually, I could possibly know the difference. But you chuck in let's say 30, 40, 50 quid bottle of wine, I'd be like, tenner. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think the trouble is when you get over that price for wine, if you've paid, anything more than that, I find the taste can be a little bit subjective. It can either be really, is my kind of thing, or that is not my kind of thing.
It's weird because I've had like a couple of bottles of Barolo, which is decent, and they're not cheap. I mean, they don't, they pale into insignificance compared to some of the prices we just talked about. But when you look at bottles of wine, you can go down ridiculously when you look at wine and stuff. But I wonder whether or not there is like an upper palate limit, and would I necessarily enjoy a $1,000 bottle of beer more than I would enjoy a Delirium or a Duvel or a, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you'd want it to last as well, though, wouldn't you?
Because it'd be like,
you're paying that kind of money for it.
Would it be that much better? Would the experience of drinking that be that much better? I don't know.
You drink it out of a squirrel in some cases, though.
There is that. Hold on. Yeah.
A bit nutty.
But yeah, interesting. Pay extra for that.
That Red Ryan one was aged in a red wine barrels. So that's probably bumped up the price.
Well, I take it that was a dark beer then.
Yeah. Well, I think it was. I drank out of the bottle because I was too annoyed.
And then I don't remember after the first bottle.
Well, we drank in there, and that was probably, say we went there midday. I think we got into that Brewdog like say 5 at night, so in the evening before we we're going to go to a gig. So yeah, I was pretty. I've had a few beers before that.
I can remember getting a beer from when we were watching the Super Bowl actually, and you came over, Andy, so you'll remember it. And it was the Buxton Brewery Yellow Belly. And again, that one I think is it's a 330ml bottle, and I paid about £10 or £11 per bottle. And I tell you what, that one was a cracker. Again, it's a dark beer. I love my dark beers, and it was a biscuity stout, a peanut butter biscuit stout, and it was phenomenal. And I would say that one was worth the money. It was significantly better than most stouts I've ever had. It was an absolute humdinger of an ale. And I use the word hum appropriate because when you drink beers like that, the house did not smell pleasant.
Was it not good?
Day.
No, not good.
No, the wife came back. The wife had stayed out. We had Matilda was very young at the time. She stayed over at her mum's, and she came back the following day. It's like, I'm sorry.
Literally just walking in the whole place.
Oh, it's vile, absolutely vile.
Because it is. I remember. Going back. It's about mine and Jenny's wedding day. I remember Hamish, and we were talking about like expensive beer. Me and Jenny got married at Crew Hall, and Hamish said, let me buy you a drink. And I was like, all right, sound. And so I had a pint. I can't fly to remember what Jenny had, but it's probably some champagne based drink. And Hamish handed over a 20, proper like grudgingly. He's like, there's literally like mine and Jenny's drink, and it was like £18 something or whatever. And you could see him handing over this £20. I'm thinking, that's my drinks the whole night. So Ratty, I apologise if you're listening and stuff, but just the funny stories about thinking Jesus, but it's weird because there's that. I don't want to look cheap, so I don't want to create a fuss. But he's probably drank water for the rest of the night. Back in the day, the youngest lad, maybe not.
I'd say Hamish back in the day liked his beer. There's no way he drank water.
No, there was no way he did. No, and that's a different podcast. Yeah, but yeah. So and there is that element of, and it's not bragging and stuff, but there is that. Yeah, okay. Don't want to look cheap, so we'll go for that bottle of wine, or we'll go for that bottle of wine, and actually you think, just a bottle of the house is fine, really. Yeah. But I mean, the expensive beers, I probably haven't drank that. I wouldn't go somewhere just to think there's a special beer on, or maybe like a beer festival or something. I know they bring the prices down because they try to promote and actually keep your eyes and ears out, guys, because TBR maybe doing something with the local beer festival, but that's a story for another podcast. But maybe you look at sort of a couple of different places and you just think, would I pay it? Not sure.
It has to be an absolute cracker of a beer.
But how do you know it's a cracker though? Well, because that's the thing. Because as you said, it can be quite subjective. So it's not like there's a definitive. These are the best beers, because you might think, well, that's fudging awful. Like there'll be people out there who love the Duchess, and I'm like, oh my god, I wouldn't even pay 5 pence, let alone a fiver. Do you know what I mean?
The Duchess will make a reappearance on this podcast, don't you worry?
Dude.
But no, well, that's the thing. I don't think it's an especially cheap beer either. The Duchess, it's not crazy money expensive like some of the ones that we talked about.
There was a beer on the list of beers to try in 2021 or somewhere in 2021, and it was a Belgian sour. I can't for the life of me remember. And when I read it, I was like, yeah, I won't be trying that one.
See, I love a fruit flavoured sour, and I just wondered if they'd added a pinch of pineapple or something like that.
I knew you were going to say that. The Duchess plus pineapple, my two hates.
Yeah.
But maybe strange infusion.
Yeah. Two wrongs do make a right, perhaps.
I can't see it.
No. There is a saying about that, and I'm pretty sure that's not it.
I wonder whether people just put a beer tax on it. When they say say you get some random beer where they've whiskey barreled aged it or whatever. So they've actually, and then they'll have some weird ingredients like, pineapple or whatever. And it's like, it's actually bumping up the cost of making it and stuff. Then I wonder whether other people are just like, oh, well, we're doing this beer, so we're going to say it's X amount because we've done this.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I've had Pyrite is one of my favourite beers known to man. But I had the rum barreled one I had, and I bought it when I was in Belgium. It was it €28 for a 750ml bottle. I was so excited because rum barreled, I think it was. Can't wait to have a sip of that. I had a sip of it. It was like, it's like much different from the normal bloody one.
Yeah. But that'd be subjective though, because there'd be some people that will have tried that and thought, oh my god, this is so much better than the original. And it is subjective, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And I suppose, without going into too much, sort of economics and stuff, the value of something is only worth what people are going to pay for it or whatever. If people are going to pay for it, then you charge it at that price. And whether or not I would pay for it, no. But if other people will, then why not? And it is very subjective, isn't it? It is a very personalised taste. We could sit around the table now, you had, and I could taste a bit of that and go, yeah, not my favourite, and you'd be like, no, that's like just proper decent. It's a belter. It's a humdinger to coin a phrase from man. And it is very subjective. So what you might pay, I don't know, let's say 20 quid a bottle for, I might go, not going to pay that. No. I tried it and I didn't like it, so I'm not going to pay for it. And it is weird, isn't it?
I'd be interested to know some of these really expensive beers, what the markup is.
Yeah,
I imagine it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Because just going back to what we were talking about, the stronger beers and everything, because we made that assumption last week about taxation, I had a quick look into tax and excise duties in the UK. So for a beer that is 1 to 2% to 2.8%, it is 8.42 pence a litre is the duty you pay on it, which is virtually nothing. For 2.8% to 7.5%, it's 19.08.
So that doubles effectively.
It does
just more, slightly more than doubles.
But it's still only 19 pence a litre.
Per litre.
So, you're talking for a 500 millilitre can, you're talking less than 10 pence. And then once you get over 7.5 pence, it's only 24.77p. Don't get me wrong, I say only for these companies that are producing a lot of it. It's a lot of duty.
Yeah, but ultimately they're paid. But yes, it's a lot of duty, but they're producing a lot of volume, and therefore, and again, you go back. I don't even know why we've mentioned the word economics twice in our podcast, but you go back to sort of economies of scale, and you look at actually if they're scaling up and they're producing that much volume, it actually becomes probably economic sense for them to do that, and therefore that, and they pay that, and so on and so on. Whereas, so what do you say? 24.7 pence per litre.
Yeah, for a beer that's over 7.5%. So certainly, you can certainly see from those figures anyway that it didn't come into play in terms of Alvis Juice, and it couldn't have done because it's stayed in the same bracket.
Yeah,
but yeah, I found that quite interesting. And then again, it made me think then, why did Stella drop down from 5.2 to 4.8? Budweiser, we'll mention them again, just in case they want to sponsor us.
Five times.
Yeah, yeah, they started off as around about 5%, now they're 4.5%.
Yeah, I don't get that. And I don't get why, if you see, this is the thing, so why do they drop and then release a 4% version? So why drop? So I get maybe keep it at 5 point whatever it was originally, and release a 4, because there actually is a significant difference between those two beers. Yeah. But why drop the ABV from your original beer and then release a 4%, which is actually relatively close to the one you've just dropped it to? So I sort of don't get that. If I'm honest,
I wonder whether it's consumption, because a lot of people just chug the beers, and the lower percentages, the more they can buy.
But what was Stella? What did they drop it to? 4.8.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's 6 in Belgium.
So what's the difference? And other than the obvious answer, which is probably a couple of pints, what's the difference between chugging a 4% beer and a 4.8% beer?
Yeah, I can't see it make vastly that much of a difference.
Whereas if you chug a 4% and what was it originally, 5.4? Was it? What was Stella originally?
It was really 5.2.
5.2. So.
Hardly says, I'm sure it is a stronger beer.
Yeah. So you look at maybe a whole percent. I mean, I don't know, but it didn't seem as though there was that significant change, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So I don't know if there's anybody from Stella out there listening. drop us a message and let us know.
Or once Budweiser become our sponsors,
we can
be privy to that information. Go on then, guys. Just out of interest, because you've talked about not really going out there and spending like crazy money on beers. What is the most you'd happily pay for a beer you really, really enjoy? So if Left produced that special beer,
£5. No, I'm joking.
No, 2 for a £5.
2 for a £5. Yeah.
But no, it's Left produced a special beer. You try it, and that is phenomenal. You have a bit of a sip. What's the most you'd gladly pay?
So a 750ml bottle.
Yeah.
15 quid a bottle. If I tasted it and knew I liked it, effectively, I mean, okay, the first time you buy it, as you said, Andy, I can't wait to try this. You could have opened that sort of, that rum barreled one and gone, it's not much different. And you think, well, that's a waste of money. But I suppose if I'd tasted it out, 15 quid, and now that would be I'll buy it. I wouldn't drink that for the whole of the night and drink 4 or 5 bottles of it, sort of thing. But maybe 15 quid, something like that, maybe. Don't know.
And obviously, we know with Andy, he's quite happy to spend 14 quid on anything with his name in it.
Yeah, 350 bottle.
That's it. Yeah.
I'll spend 200 quid a month just on beer orders, so I'm sure I'll be all right with 15.
So would you spend 200 quid on? I don't know.
A beer.
A beer.
Once, definitely, yeah. See how good it is.
Yeah.
Honestly, would you? Would you? So you would? So you just because it's weird because obviously I'm a massive sportsman and people are, what would you pay to play that golf course or do that? I would pay a lot, but I suppose somebody who's not hobbyist beer, because then you become an alcoholic, but do you know what I mean? But who's maybe interested in beer, maybe they would I would say that spending 200 quid on a bottle of beer is excessive. But then Andy will say to me, you spending £1,000 to go and play a golf course is excessive. Whereas for me, it'd be like, no, so I suppose it is, again, that individual preference. But you'd spend 200 quid on a bottle of beer.
I think if it was something unique about it, not like where people are like, oh, well, it's got gold flakes in it. I'd be like, oh, I'm not interested in that. It's just a bit of metal.
What about a piece of hair or squirrel or something like that?
No. It's got to be like unique or something like that. I don't know.
So what would make it unique then? What would that thing be?
It's all about a percentage, baby. Woo!
I don't know. Tagline for this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all about the percentage, baby. So what would you do?
Well, I don't know. I'm probably in a similar sort of ballpark to you. Would I spend 200 quid on a bottle of beer? Maybe I'd do it once and only once and regret it for a long time after if it wasn't the perfect beer. But my fear is, the flip side of that is, what happens if you have that and that is the perfect elixir of a beer? I've got to have another one of them bad boys. Yeah. Then you're in world of trouble, aren't you? Then you go and
you go on a night out and all of a sudden you look at your credit card the next day and you're like, okay, I drank 4 or 5 of them.
That's it. I ain't going home.
Yeah, spent £1,000 on 4 bottles of beer or whatever, I don't know.
I can remember when we did the episode for the podcast where we sat around, the 3 of us around the table, we tried a few different beers. One of the beers that I went to the Sandbach Beer Emporium and I told him the sort of beers I like. And he said, look, there's one here that's for you, but I'll level with you. It's a bit expensive. So bear in mind, we were buying one per person and it was a bottle called Attila the Hen. It's from Kentucky in the States. It's got feathers glued to the outside of the neck, and it's matured in Kentucky bourbon barrel. So right off the bat, I'm thinking this is the sort of beer that I am going to enjoy. He says, however, it's a 750ml bottle of beer, and it's going to set you back 32 quid. I thought, wow, 32 quid times 3, we're talking £96 there for a beer that's it's going to get us mullered. And we don't really want that for that because it is 12.7%. So it's a strong one when you're drinking a wine bottle. And let's face it, we were in a rare old state by the end of those episodes anyway.
Yeah.
Probably for the best that I didn't. But that said, that one has sort of tinkered away at the back of my mind because it does sound like a great beer.
But maybe that would be one that, and this could be future podcasts, maybe you go and buy that and you have one bottle. I go and buy one, Andy goes and buys one, and we just have... So that's what I bought. And it's like, okay, there's a third of a bottle, and we just do one each.
Yeah. Some expensive beers.
Yeah,
we love doing follow-up episodes.
So we just buy one bottle rather than, well, we'll buy 3 bottles of that and 3 bottles of that and 3 bottles of that. And we'll all get leathered because so literally we just buy one bottle each and we just effectively taste sample it,
and end up at the end of the night slurring and eating ghost chili peanuts.
You might, yeah, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a high ABV, though, does it? Although I think Andy
will take umbrage with that statement.
That's what I'll be looking for, high percentage.
So maybe that's an option. And as you say, instead of doing because did I buy 3 bottles of the 750ml Leffe, and then did I buy 3 large bottles? I can't remember what my first was. It?
Yeah, listen to those episodes back, folks. I tell you what, they won't make any sense come the end of it.
What it was,
but there was a lot of beer drank in a 2 hours period of time.
But maybe it is, and obviously when Andy comes down here and we can record all together, we literally do like, there's my bottle, there's your bottle, and we sort of have 3 glasses each, and we
I like the sound of that one, and I do,
and that makes it slightly more.
Yeah, I do also like the idea you had last week of trying the non-alcoholic beers and actually
do a blind beer test.
Yeah, well, I listened to it back, and as always, whenever we do the podcast, I watch it back on YouTube just to make sure it's playing okay and it's uploaded okay. And I watched it back with the wife, and she said, "Wow, what you get the beers, and I'll serve them out so Gaz can join in as well, so he's not missing out."
Perfect, yeah.
So I thought that'd be an interesting episode.
Perfect, because that would be, because it goes back to what I was saying about if it was the same taste, the same colour, the same aroma, you just didn't have the alcohol. Would you drink it? And I know you mentioned in the podcast, having listened back, you were like, I quite like that merry feeling of that little buzz that you get after 3 or 4 beers and just that happy place.
Yeah.
And would you get that sensation without the alcohol?
I don't think I would.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So and it is. I think that's a decent follow up. I think we could do that.
I think so. As joyous as your company is, a little bit of beer just takes the edge off you, Pat.
And when Andy's here, it's just all we're just all in. It's just brilliant. It's just Andy brings out his peer art and his 9, 10, 11% beers. It's like happy days.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I had to come down in the van. to sleep on the driveway.
Yeah, I was going to say, how much are you planning on bringing?
To be fair, dude, there's like obviously the ads and there's mine right across me. I've got a big double garage, mate. You can find a bloody. You probably put your camper van in there.
Yeah, would yeah. Park on your Rocky.
I park absolutely, and if not, I've got an airbed. It's fine.
Cool. Well, I think that brings us up round about the hour mark. There's been a few left turns in that episode. Yeah. I quite enjoyed it.
Good one tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And as always, we've teed ourselves up with a few ideas for the future. So, who wants to say their goodbyes first?
No, I'm going to go first because I've really enjoyed this episode. It's been fun. We, the new format. We did a little bit of news to start with, and then we've just chatted, haven't we? It's been nice. It's been good banter. So really enjoyed this episode, and look forward as always to feedback from the listeners, feedback from the viewers. If you've tasted any of the beers that we mentioned tonight, please get in touch with us, particularly for our American sort of listeners, viewers. I've mentioned quite a few from America, so if you have tried any, I say just hit us up, just give us a shout out, and if anyone wants to give us an intro shout out, which were who was that from?
It was Dave. That was
it? Dave, yeah, there you go. You see, so anyone wants to hit us up an intro, then feel free to hit us up an intro.
Absolutely, Andy.
Yeah, I enjoyed that one. I've actually just created a list of ideas, and I don't normally do this. It's given me a few ideas this episode, so I'll write them down and let you know.
So Andy's going to lead the next couple then.
Yeah, that's what
it sounds like to me.
Yeah. I'll stumble through the next few. Oh shit! Yeah, no. See you later. Toodles.
But just on the front there, it just reminds me of something that I was going to mention at the start, and I didn't. We did hear from a listener. Bill's been in touch about my comment last week about famous people from Stoke.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he gave me a long list of people,
he?
One of which, who we probably should have picked up, given our salubrious background in darts, certain Philip Taylor.
Yeah, Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Arguably the greatest sportsman ever.
Yeah, exactly, 17 times world champ. Phil, so
I know you listen. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we wholeheartedly. Sorry, no, I'll take ownership. I'll do a James Watt for a Brewdog. I'll wholeheartedly take ownership on that one, and I apologise for my statement about Stokies. But that's it from us this week. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. Hope you've enjoyed the new format. I certainly enjoy recording it in this way. And I wish you all a fond farewell. Let us know if you've tried any of those beers like Gaz says. And until next time, I no doubt we'll have plenty more stuff to talk about. Take care, folks.